Hello world, welcome to the 88th Climate Change Emergency Protest in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This is August 14th, 2020. Again, this is the 88th Climate Change Protest. With me is Tanya.
Welcome to the Climate Change Protest, Party of Two.
So this is number 88, as I said. It is August 14th. Next week will be August 21st, and that'll be number 89. Presently, the CO2 level is somewhere around 412.81, 413, and last year it was 410.5. So it's up 2.5 points right this second, but in reality, it's usually 3.5 points above last year's amount. It's meaningless to some. Just remember 410, somewhere in there, 414. Bouncing around in there right now, and it will go down as the summer progresses and then go back up this winter, and then it should approach probably about 420, 422 probably in April next year. The significance of it is that it's survivable between 200 and 280 parts per million. This keeps the climate status steady. Right now at 400, you're going to have a variation in climate. It affects a jet stream and multiple other factors, which is climate change itself. Presently, the coronavirus is running its rampage through the United States and amping up throughout Europe again. But presently, it's a missed opportunity to affect climate change with the coronavirus and all in the United States. Manufacturing's down, and the opportunity to come up with other ideas is going bye-bye. Regardless of the fact, we need to get something going here, whether there's coronavirus or not. And that's the United States' whole focus right now is coronavirus, which is understandable, but you need to do something that is more than just reactive, and you need to do proactive events. So both candidates are stuck in coronavirus issue. It's an existential threat, as Joe Biden says, but if that was the case, then you would be working on it every moment of your life and not doing anything else. Existential means immediate and life-threatening. So, here we are, and there we go. There's going to be little chance to survive this if we don't get on it. You can't fix a problem if you're not going to address a problem. And, you need to broach the subject, make it non-political, and just bludgeon everyone constantly with the information about climate change till they start to believe it. You present scientific evidence and go on from there. My whole talk is going to be about glaciers for the most part. Presently, you're going to have a result of glaciers melting in the Greenland and also in Antarctica. You're seeing results of deflation and shrinking glaciers due to graying of the glaciers and also heating of the environment. The graying of the glaciers is a result of fires in the taiga and the permafrost, bogs in Russia and around the world with pollution. With the graying, you get 40% reflectivity of the ice off the ice with sunlight, as opposed to 80% reflectivity. So it absorbs more sunlight, which results in more heating of the environment, especially up in the Arctic, which is heating up anywhere from 2 times to 6 times more quickly than is around the world as far as climate change goes. So, what happens is that you get flooding with deflation and melting of ice. And for example, in New York City, it only takes 40 minutes to flood the subway system. So they're very vulnerable to climate change as to what's happening, and the predictive rises in sea level. They're in big trouble, and they need to think about moving New York City farther upland, which would be up into Harlem and whatnot. Right now, let's see here. Sorry, I'm a little off my game. I'm hearing other people talking. Snowfall in Greenland. Right now, 25% of all snowfall in Greenland melts once it falls, and it goes back in the ocean. Originally, it was 100% would stay on the glaciers. So you're getting a certain amount of melt involved with that, which creates moulins, which creates pools of darker water, which creates melting of the ice as well. Venice has adapted somewhat, or trying to adapt. They have 75 movable gates, or going to invent 78 movable gates that will stop the flooding in Venice itself. Now, in a historical context, 14,000 years ago, the oceans were 196 feet lower than what they are now. You had over 400 years, you had a melt go on and that rose the sea level up 196 feet, which is hard to believe that it would happen that quick. And the parts per million in CO2 was much lower than they are now. So there's a delay involved with CO2 versus immediate effects. So right now the CO2 level is 410, 415, and this guy's about to hit my car. Anyways, so what happens is that the CO2 level there's a delay effect with that. Hey, my best friend Daryl Jones is here. How you doing, Daryl? Nice seeing you. Hadn't seen you in a while. Doing a climate change talk. Say hello, world.
Hi, world. And let me tell you, this whole ice shelf thing that could fill the Grand Canyon, it's real, people. So stop denying science and start believing in climate science. Don't be a moron. And if this gets edited out, I'll say it again. Don't be a moron. Science is real.
I would never edit Daryl Jones out. He's the oracle of knowledge in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Love Daryl Jones. So anyways, presently the Antarctica is composed of a series of islands, and this is my big part of the talk. Okay, Antarctica is not a solid continent. Antarctica is a series of islands. People don't realize that. Very few people even know this. If you look at a topographical map that's up to date, it is mostly islands. Especially West Antarctica is mostly ice. It's very few islands involved. So what you're seeing is just pure ice, not land underneath. And the danger of that is that you could have severe melt. The ice goes down, the ice goes down anywhere from 3,000 feet, sea level, down to 3,000 feet, down to 5,000 feet below sea level. It's grounded in the sea floor. So what's going to happen is that since there's little land mass and it's can be affected by warmer water, the water can dig down underneath the ice and lift up the ice, and that would result in basically a crowbar effect as well as melting effect of the ice. And it is entirely possible that the entire West Antarctic ice sheet could collapse very quickly and cause massive amounts of sea level rise. For example, the Thwaites Glacier, or Thwaites as you want to call it, could cause a rise of 11 feet in sea level just by itself. It's an amazing glacier that's sliding into the ocean, and it is like the cork in the bottle that it holds back all the other glaciers. So once that one goes, then we're in big trouble. But there's a little study being done, and most people, as I said, think that Antarctica is one solid continent, and it is not at all. It is just, as I said, a series of big islands. Now, East Antarctica is a little different. That's a little more landed, but it's probably, if you did an estimate, it'd be 35% ice and 65% land. But West Antarctica is probably about 90% ice and 10% land. So it's very scary to look at. The ice has piled up in the oceans, and now it is over a mile high, if not higher, in Antarctica. So that's what you're seeing is just ice piled on top of ice that is pushing down into the seabed. So it is very vulnerable to a warm intrusion of seawater, and things are much more fragile than what we believe. And my allusion back to the 14,000 years ago, when sea level rose 196 feet in 400 years, that could easily happen within a span of a decade or two, and it would totally flood almost all the coastal cities, and you'd have people having to leave the areas by the billions. And if it's at that point too, the whole climate changes as well. So water can get in and destroy way into the ice levels, not just the Thwaites Glacier, but throughout the whole system down in Antarctica. So, once it gets past the gates, so-called, or it starts cracking the ice, the whole ice could collapse and just fracture in an unbelievable way. As I said, it can lift and carve away the sea floor, the ice from underneath. It can crack in between because the water warms up the ice involved. Hot air can do it as well. Hot air injected in due to climate change, warm fronts coming into Antarctica, which we saw last year way up in the atmosphere, is very, very warm. So 400,000 years ago, the CO2 level was 300 parts per million, and they had a collapse of the entire East Antarctic ice sheet. So this can happen and has happened throughout history, and we need to be aware of the potentialities. So just remember, Antarctica is a series of islands and not one giant mass continent. So for future studies, I recommend, if you want to become aware of climate change and become very able to talk to people about climate change in a positive manner or an informative manner. I recommend you watch Environmental Coffee House, Extinction Rebellion. This is on YouTube and Facebook. Extinction Rebellion, Environmental Coffee House, Paul Beckwith, Peter Carter, Peter Wadhams, Roger Hallam, Allison Green, Rupert Reed, Gail Bradbrook, Facing Future with Stuart Scott and Allison Green, and also DW documentaries, as well as anything involving Extinction Rebellion itself is really good. So next week's talk will be August 21st, and that'll be number 89. See you later.